I've been trying to get Gord through a door.
Well, she got out there.
It's live on YouTube.
I've been trying to get Gord through a door.
Oh, no.
We will be starting in approximately 1 minute.
According to Dollywall, Canucks are still in the mix for Stetcher.
What are the topics we'll be talking about?
Okay, all right. Sorry, guys. I gotta take Cord out. I'll be back.
Okay.
Go.
We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome on Facebook Live, on YouTube to the Hockey Podcast, the regular Saturday edition. Third straight day we've been on. We're live here. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Like us on Facebook. Like us on, subscribe on YouTube. And the Hockey Podcast. We've got and I subscribe on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. The most underrated podcast in hockey. So there we go. That's our new tagline. Hello Sean and Heidi, which I'm intrigued of this conversation today. This morning, I've got my popcorn here, watching Sean and Heidi have a discussion about the events of the last couple of days. How's Heidi doing?
I'm good. I'm happy with what the Flames did, and the couple new faces we have from this team from the West Coast.
Yes. And Sean, how are you?
It's a punch in the gut, Kevin. It's a punch in the gut. Losing Markey, I think I had goalies are different for me. I just don't necessarily have the emotional attachment to them as I do with a defenseman, especially hardworking warrior, stay-at-home defensemen who sacrifice their body and just go through walls and give it everything they got for the team. And that's what Tanev is. And to see the Canucks not be able to bring him back is definitely a massive gut punch for me.
You could even see it in his face. Like, you look at his, it's just like he is sad.
Mm-hmm.
He's very sad. Chris, how are you?
I'm well, doing fairly well now that it's the day of my birth. So definitely looking forward to the big Thanksgiving dinner later today.
That reminds me, we have someone here, some people here, wanting to wish you a happy birthday. Just a moment. You can all join in as well. It is Chris's birthday, and here we go. There you go. Cats wishing you a happy birthday.
Isn't that just serendipitous that the cat is going right behind me in the shot?
There we go. I timed that with perfection. I'm sure Devin is chasing his dog, I think. So, but he'll be with us in a moment. And Tyler is expected to join us as well. And so let's, I guess, start with, who do we got? Well, so we got the sadness from Sean. Let's hear the happiness from Heidi of the signings of Markstrom and Tanev.
Yeah, so I'm really happy now that the Flames have an actual like starting goalie. No more of this like signing 1 or 2 year contracts on either backups or the 1A, 1B situation. Because I've watched more Canucks games in the past year or so, I've been watching Markstrom play more, so I'm happy to have him. The term on the contract was a little much for me, but the number per year was it's good for me, and I'm excited to have him on our team. And in the case of Tanev, I know that Sean always had such nice things to say about Tanev, and he was very upset yesterday, so that just made me feel more excited to have Tanev because of how much I think Canucks fans are going to miss him. So that was another one where I'm like the term seemed a little bit off, but players want to stick around. They don't want to go somewhere just for a year or two. They want to stay. So Trey Living did what he did, and I'm excited to see this little bit of a shakeup on the Flames team, and there might actually be some more coming today as well.
Yes. Before we get into Chris, Devin and I did a live yesterday, and I think Markstrom is a franchise altering move because they have not had a number 1 goaltender since Mika Kiprusoff. So already Markstrom in terms of all time is probably in the top 5 as soon as he puts on that Flame jersey. And I do think it's an indication of a culture shift. And Tanev, we'll get to Tanev in a moment, but I did want to hear from Chris as Devin is here. Hello, Devin.
Hello. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. We're just getting into Chris's reaction to losing Markstrom and Tanev. We got, so we'll hear from you after as the gain of Markstrom and Tanev. Go ahead, Chris. And
so as far as the loss, like I had kind of prepared myself for losing Markstrom because to me it made the most fiscal sense that if we get a decent 1B to back up Demko and kind of give him veteran leadership and mentorship, that we would be able to progress just fine and not have to pay Markstrom a big contract. Obviously, it played out exactly as I had imagined in that regard. The only thing I'm upset about is the fact that he landed in the city that I now live in. So the fact that I'm going to have to see him in enemy colors that often is going to suck because he is a top-notch human being and a top-notch goalie. That being said, I guess I have to feel a little bit happy for Flames fans because they definitely got, like Kevin said, their most legit number 1 goalie that they've had since Kiprusoff retired. So, yeah. And in regards to Tanev, just like Sean, I'm dejected that he's gone. He has been a mainstay on the Canucks defensive core since 2011 when he got the first try in the 2011 Cup run. And yeah, he's been nothing but great for the Canucks. There was always an argument as to how valuable he was and whether he'd get traded at trade deadlines and his injury proneness and all that sort of stuff. But he's earned this contract. I'm happy for him that he finally got a big payday.
Before we do this, before we hear from Devin, we got this.
Breaking news.
Heidi has sent a tweet. Would you like to read the tweet that you have sent?
Sure. So from Darren, how do you say it? Is it Drager?
Yeah.
I think so. It's looking like the Oilers and Tyson Barrie are closing in on a 1-year agreement. Being finalized, likely just shy of $4 million per year for Tyson Barrie.
Yeah, that
Good.
makes sense.
I didn't want the Canucks to sign him.
Yeah. Again, that's still just a rumor. I mean, Drager, yes, usually up there on my list of people to make things official. But honestly, until usually like Elliot Friedman tweets it, I don't take it absolutely seriously.
Well, that lesson was happened yesterday with the whole Markstrom situation, which, yeah, we were like, oh yeah, we're talking about Mark. Wait, almost make you. Devin, go ahead. How are you feeling?
Oh, fantastic! I'm thrilled to have both Tanev and Markstrom on our team. I'm not surprised that Tanev signed with us, considering him and Markstrom obviously have been on the same team with Vancouver, and I'm thrilled to have both of them. Tanev, whoever's shitting on Tanev, I didn't know that some people I guess were shitting on Tanev, saying it's a Troy Brouwer esque type of trade or signing. Sorry, just shut up. I don't think you actually know the type of player Chris Tanev is, and the way that Canucks fans have endeared him. The locker room of the Vancouver Canucks called him Dad, as I've heard from Sean and Chris and Tyler. So that means a lot. Bring that leadership in, and a heart and soul player that will block shots for you, that will put everything on the line every single night. So having him, it's a big upgrade on what we've had before, especially on the right side. So I could see him playing with Valimaki, help him kind of come along a little bit. And that having a mentor for the young defenseman and for the young players on his team is massive, like a Chris Tanev.
And Markstrom? Yeah,
Markstrom, great. Obviously number one goalie in this league for the first time since Kip, and I'm just absolutely thrilled that we locked him up. And yes, you know what? Okay, anytime that you sign a player on free agency, then you're probably giving a year, maybe even 2 years more than you actually should. But if you think you're right in the window to be a competitor for the Stanley Cup and be a mainstay in the playoffs, then you have to make these swings. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be trading, and with trades, obviously you have people going in and out. But with signing, you're not giving up anything other than, or you're not giving up any players on your team. So anytime that you can add a top tier goalie, you have to. I hats off to Brad Treliving and what he did yesterday, and I don't think he's done yet. I think that there might be one more signing, and he loves to trade, so I wouldn't be surprised to see someone on their way out, and potentially like a Noah Hannafin going forward.
Well, yeah, because for Hannafin, I wonder if there's a part of him that has asked to move, not to move out east. I wonder if he's just he seems like he's a bit of a family guy, wants to be close to his family, and I could see him wanting he would prefer to play out east. There's a lot of players that are like that, and I could see that making sense. I think that for sure the Flames are watching well Valimaki is doing in Finland right now. And if he is getting there, that probably opens the door for them to look at trading Hannafin. They still need a top six forward. They will not get one in. I think they're out of Taylor Hall. Like the way that I see it, they can't fit Taylor Hall in this, and I don't think that they. I was saying this off air. Can you imagine Markstrom, Tanev, and Toffoli signing with the Flames? Can you imagine the Twitter storm that would cause? But I just don't think that's feasible there. But to me, they still need to add to improve that forward. And I think Hannafin, I do agree that Hannafin can create that option.
Absolutely. And with the emergence and signing of Connor Mackey, they believe that he is going to be pushing for an NHL job next year on the left-hand side of the defense. So moving out a piece like Hannafin and getting something back, or even more, even just out for a pick or something. Obviously, you got to find the right suitor for Hannafin, but having Connor Mackey emerge I think is a big bonus for the Calgary Flames.
Welcome, Tyler. Good morning to you. How are you doing?
Good morning, everybody. Happy birthday, Chris. I heard Sean there earlier, his reaction to the gut punch. It's a tough day. I have to say it's a tough day with the Canucks. Markstrom was less of a surprise to see him go to free agency, but to lose both him and Chris Tanev, that's a lot of leadership and a lot of heart and soul gone from the Canucks. It's just the reality of what a lot of NHL teams are dealing with right now with the flat cap and, projecting ahead, not just to next year, but multiple years and trying to see how all your salary structure is going to work. And, the Canucks have a couple of young stars they're going to have to give big raises to after next season. So I don't know. I didn't imagine waking up today seeing a team look this different, but here we are. At the same time, pretty excited about Braden Holtby and seeing what else the Canucks are able to do here, perhaps even today while we're on.
Yes, we could have breaking news as we get through this. From the Canucks perspective with Markstrom, I'll ask Chris and Tyler this first because we did discuss this yesterday. If Demko does not play in the playoffs, is Markstrom a Canuck?
Probably. Like I feel like without that performance, maybe the Canucks wouldn't have pulled the trigger on the confidence that they now have in him. It's kind of a toss-up, but my gut wants to say that Mark, you probably might still be a Canuck if it wasn't for that performance.
Yeah, it's hard, if they were to sit here and say, oh, no, it makes no difference. I mean, I think that would just be hogwash. I mean, obviously, the 3-game performance there tipped the scales in favor of going with Demko. I guess Devin gets what he wants after all. Yeah. Thatcher Demko's the guy. Jacob Markstrom not only no longer in Vancouver, but goes to his team. That's great. Thanks very much. The whole team. I mean, you have to feel more confident in Demko, but at the same time, and I've been saying this for a year almost, pretty small sample. It's still a pretty small sample. So I think the Holtby signing's good. It's protection, helps shelter Demko a little bit. If you just went with Demko and DiPietro, I think that would be a complete disaster. I don't know
definitely would have been some growing pains for sure.
Oh yeah, Mikey's ready, I think, to be a call up and play, here and there and be with the team when required. But I don't think he's ready to be a full-time backup yet. And then you're putting a lot on Demko's shoulders. In this case, they can pretty well straight platoon if they want to do it that way. And from all indications on Twitter yesterday, it looks like Holtby, chose Vancouver for the situation over potentially the best contract. So that's really exciting as well.
Like Sean has.
Yeah, it's the losing Markstrom is one. I think it's just part of it of losing Markstrom has been mitigated by knowing that they've got a solid goaltender to come in tandem with Demko for the next 2 years on a much more palatable contract, especially for the Canucks. It looks like the Canucks are trying to clear the deck of a lot of their dead and bad cap space going into next season. If they can do that, then that they allows them to potentially buy out Eriksson and not feel the impact of that, as well as they need as much cap space as possible to help grow this team going forwards, as well as sign Petey and Hughes come before the 21-22 season. So I think this might be, it's going to be an interesting next few days for Canucks fans, because I think they're going to have to get someone else signed on the blue line. And I honestly really do hope that Benning really finds a way to, and is willing to move some draft picks here to move say a Sutter or someone to be able to open up cap space so that they can go after one of the remaining top end wingers that are available, because I do really think that they can't just go into next year with potentially Jake Virtanen as your or Louis Eriksson as your number one and two options for the right wing on Bo Horvat's line again.
If I'm hearing you correctly, I'm hearing
Sweetener.
that.
Here we
that
go.
is that it?
You guys.
You recognize that voice?
I've been off all week. You guys have been getting together. You've been scheming against me in that time, I see.
I guess for that, maybe just for the Canucks here, do you see them looking at the PTO route for a defenseman? Because I do think there's going to be an increase in those. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that will be left in the lurch, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to have to go do a PTO for a training camp option here.
It'll be interesting I think next week, depending on who's available, see if anyone actually decides to commit to, like, say, a 1 year, $1 million contract.
Or even a league minimum $700K. Yeah. Like you saw a bunch of those, especially by the Flames yesterday, with Ronaldo, Froze. I forget how to say his name. Phrase, thank you. He got just above. He got $7+ $1,000. So there's going to be a lot of people, Kev, that are going to be looking for a job, and the PTO might be the best way to go, especially if you're willing or you need to fill out your roster a little bit more.
Should just mention here, while we were on, the Twitter speculation is that the Canucks may still be in on Tyson Barrie. They were in on Tyson Barrie, and now the Oilers are closing in on a deal there, apparently. So, but Troy Stecher still not signed by anybody, so we'll see. Be nice to have him back with the Canucks. I had to chuckle this morning. I wondered what the Sean Heidi household was feeling like this morning. Saw some tweet somewhere about hey, Calgary, get your own team or something. I don't know who that was.
Dallas Smith.
Dallas Smith. Yes.
This was last night, actually. Like, this morning, it's fine, but I should tell a story of we were sitting there, and I said to Sean, I was like, so can I get a Chris Tanev jersey now? And
no.
The look that he gave me.
Just straight up no.
It was pure, like, death stare. Like, he was so upset at the thought of me ever having a Flames jersey with Tanev's name on it. So,
yeah.
That's kind of like, that just kind of wraps up that kind of the situation, I think. But we were having a discussion this morning too, and I need to get used to, like, how when the players switch and like the teams are always like photoshopping the new jersey onto their body. I'm gonna need to get used to Tanev being in red. He doesn't look that good in that red color yet, but I'm sure it will grow on me. I'm sure Markstrom looks good at it though.
So I just wanted to, I don't know if you guys talked about this yesterday. I mean, obviously for the Canucks, contract term was a problem in getting Markstrom and Tanev re-signed. And I don't know if I'm going to be blasting off on this for a bit, but people who watch this podcast, they know how I feel about Jim Benning. I've generally been very supportive of Jim Benning's work. I think he's done a great job. It's taken a while, but I think he's done a great job in turning over the team from the Sedin core to this core. And I mean, look at the product that was on the ice during the summer. I mean, it was awesome. But the frustration for me, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this, is, now is the time we're going to show restraint on term. With guys that have been stalwarts for the club that were playing for you, but just in recent years, they're handing out term to guys like Jay Beagle and Louis Eriksson, who I like, and I don't think are useless plugs like some fans are disrespectfully saying about those guys. But it contradicts what they were doing before. So I don't why that is. I don't know. I mean, we can speculate for days as to, how much ownership's involved or different moods in the front office or whatever. But, this whole shrewd mood of decision making and free agency is not what we're used to seeing with the Canucks. I mean, we're used to seeing them handing out money to somebody.
But
And
you're also getting
now they're not.
people. You're getting people that saying that if the Canucks went with that Flame contract, that's an overpay, and they would have been frustrated by it.
Well, I think with the Markstrom one, yeah, the Tanev one, it didn't seem like they were that far off from getting him back. We've talked about it here before that it's a bit of a risky re-signing with Chris Tanev in 4 years. Is not ideal. If reportedly, I think through Dollywall, correct. I hope I'm right on that. I thought I saw him say that the reported offer by the Canucks was 2 years. It might have been him or Friedman. Sorry, guys. But anyways, it didn't seem like that far off. And but what's Chris Tanev going to be like 3-4 years from now? I mean, I think it's fair to say we probably have seen the best of Chris Tanev already. So Markstrom, I think there was still amazingly room for improvement. Still, I think Markstrom's going to be great for a while. So that's in terms of long-term view on what you're losing there. I mean, that's a bit of a loss for the Canucks with Markstrom, but with Tanev, well, Jim Benning has said already he thinks Olli Juolevi can play and is ready to play. Well, that's going to have to really work out for the Canucks now.
Yeah, with Markstrom and with Demko coming up, they couldn't go long term with Markstrom. And Markstrom desperately wanted that no movement clause as well, so he didn't have to worry about being drafted and changing teams and cities after 1 year, which is fair. But with Demko, the Canucks couldn't commit to that. The 6x6 for Markstrom, I think, is it's a year longer than I would go. I personally think that they're probably going to get 3 really good seasons out of Markstrom, and then after that, it's up in the air.
Yeah, I was thinking 4 was probably a good deal for him and whichever team he signed with.
Yeah, and but yeah, 3 really good seasons, and after that, I think it's going to be very up in the air with Markstrom, and then with Tanev, the miles are so high on him. He's a warrior, so I can understand anyone who has issues with the term, but he's going to play until he can't play anymore, and he's done a lot of work to try and fix his equipment so that he doesn't get injured as much blocking shots. And if you play him with someone who can move the puck up and he's not playing defense all the time, he's going to stay healthy. So I do think that you're going to, again, I think you're going to get about two solid years out of Chris Tanev, and then you just have to hope that he can continue on for the final 2 with that. But like I said, he's a warrior. He's gonna go through walls. He's going to do whatever he can to help the team win. He's a great man. He's a great off the ice guy who will help the younger players coming in. If they decide to pair him with Valimaki, that be or if they decide to if Mackey can play his way in, he'd be a very, very good pair for them as just like he did with Quinn Hughes as a very steadying veteran presence on their right side. So I think there's a lot to like in terms of what he brings to the Flames for sure.
On the Markstrom front, yeah, if we get 3 good years, I think we can get 4 good years out of him. That gives enough time to Tyler Parsons or even a Dustin Wolf to step in and be able to kind of be the backup or the 1B, if you will. So I think that's a good term. Yes, probably one year longer than you wanted. But yeah, Tanev has not played a full year. The most he's played is 70 games, and that was back in 14-15. So you get the good with the bad, but yeah, you'll get the best out of him every night.
I look back though with the Flames, and I know that sometimes this may seem a little dramatic, but I look back at that Matthew Tkachuk moment in Game 6 where he just loses it after that Monahan chance. That for the Flames, I really think that they looked at this season and they looked at who won the Western Conference and they saw it as a missed opportunity. And they looked at it and said, if we had no offense to Talbot, but if they had a Markstrom, they may have felt that they could beat Dallas. And if they had a Tanev, if they improved just a little bit, I think that there was some frustration there, and just in terms of who they had, and they need to make some improvements. But I think that they looked at this as a lost opportunity. And if they get 2 good seasons out of Tanev, 3 good seasons out of Markstrom, I think that they will be fine with that if it moves them closer to where they need to go. This will look like this will be an overpay, but it might be an overpay that ends up being worth it.
Yeah.
I was saying this yesterday, that having that confidence in a number one goalie, and having that confidence to, as you're on the ice, to know that you're if there's a 2-on-1, that your goalie has your back, it gives you a bit more jump in your step to make more of an offensive push with having a number one goalie. So I think that's going to be massivly beneficial if Johnny Gaudreau or Sean Monahan, or both of them, stay. Then they won't have to worry about so much the defensive side of the game.
Yeah, and I guess to me, you're putting Tanev with one of the young guys. I guess you now are going Anderson, Giordano as your top pair, and then you got Tanev with.
I could also see them just putting Tanev in the Hominick role and playing him with Hanifin as well.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I know what you're getting at, Kev, with Hanifin and his Eastern roots. There hasn't been any rumblings about that. So I don't know if that's actually there's anything to that. And I do think that the moves that True Living has made with bringing in Tanev and bringing in Markstrom, I think says a lot to the players that they're in for a run here. And if you're wanting out at that point, then I question your willingness to do what it takes to win. So and I don't see that from Hanifin either. So I think he's here for at least another season to see how this run of things goes. And like I said, I think it would be him and Tanev wouldn't be a bad pairing, as long as they aren't getting ventilated like they were, like Hamonic and Hanifin had the tendency of doing everyone more often than you would want.
Now, I agree with Sean. I don't think Hanifin is really that type of person or player. He seems like he's in it for the long haul. But only reason why I think that he might be on the way out is because he's been rumored in deals before. And I don't want to put this out there because I'm going to put it out there, but it everybody's like, oh yeah, just send money towards Ottawa because they haven't hit the cap floor yet. But if you look at the trajectory of the Ottawa Senators and where they are as a franchise, they could benefit from having Noah Hanifin on their team, because on the right side they have Shabbat, Mike Riley, and Christian Wolini. And that's, Wolini, sure, I don't know what his potential is, but that could help solidify that top four easily enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, Travis Hamonic is likely going to end up in Manitoba. And I do think that that's a guy that wants to win, but very different situation in terms of what his family situation is. And
the thing with Hamonic is it's his family situation. He's got a daughter who's immune compromised. I honestly see him pulling a Michael Grabner and sitting this out until they know what the season looks like, and then signing and if it's a bubble, then he's not. If he's not comfortable with the way everything is with COVID, he'll sit it out. But I don't think any team can rely on signing him at this point. I haven't seen anything like whether or not he's taking his time, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. So I know there was a lot of sort of chuckling on, would be funny if now the Canucks go out and sign Hamonic to replace Tanev in that sort of role. But I think the Canucks are looking to change up what the blue line looks like mix wise, and B, I think that I think Hamanek's looking to take his time and make the decision that's right for his family. Plus, we've got some breaking news.
Oh,
Yes.
hang on.
And it's not going to be a fun one for Hannah.
Okay. So from retweeted from Elliot Freeman from the Detroit Red Wings. Red Wings today agreed to terms with defenseman Troy Stecher on a 2-year contract.
I've been making moves. Holy, he's I think he's one of the most underrated GMs in in the NHL. I think he's making some big moves here for the future of the Red Wings. And look at the Ottawa Senators right now, and look how fast that kind of rebuild or retool was. I feel like Red Wings are right behind them, and could be 1 year behind the potentially being back in the playoffs or pushing for the playoffs.
Ottawa's got a long ways to go, but Detroit's got some pieces that are good. I've said this before. I love Troy. I love the effort he puts out. Another guy who's a warrior. But in terms of what the Canucks need to take that next step and make the blue line better, he doesn't really add much, in my opinion. He's a smart player, but he put up less points than Chris Tanev this past year. He's not a penalty killer. He's not a guy who can really make a difference on the power play. So as much as emotionally it's a gut punch, it's the right move to move on from Stecher if they can find the right replacement. The problem is, can they find that right replacement?
Agreed.
Talk about shitting on a guy on your way out. Jesus, man.
No, that's not shitting on him. He's done he did a fantastic job. He's a local kid, and he wore his heart on his sleeve for that. But it's just it's unfortunately the way things are now, and they've got some young players coming up. They've got Brogan Rafferty, who I don't foresee making the league next year, at least to start, unless he drastically improves his defensive game between now and January, whenever the season starts. But they've got Jalen Chatfield, who I think they feel can kind of be a third pair safe defenseman. And then they need to find someone to be a bit more of a puck moving game changer on that right side. So again, I think there's players out there that are available to do that at a cheaper cost. So as much as, like, again, emotionally, it's a gut punch, because he's a great guy, a great kid, grew up cheering for the Canucks, but I just, again, when you're trying to see who's the core of the team and who you can move forward with, unfortunately, he's one of those borderline players that you have to make a decision on.
Yeah, I agree with Sean all the way there. I mean, look, the reality for the Canucks, and fans got to remember this, is, they didn't get past the second round in the playoffs. Like, if they're serious about really taking another step forward, there's going to be changes. This is more change than I imagined, but they were going to be changes. Jim Benning hinted at that. Question is now is who's going to play defense? Like, they've lost so much of it. Oh dear. So I don't know. Are we still holding out hope for Pietrangelo or what? Like, I don't think that's realistic.
We would have to move some serious money to pull that off.
Yeah. There was a tweet that said if the Canucks didn't sign Tyler Myers last year, they would have been able to sign Pietrangelo this year.
Yeah. I saw you mocking that earlier. We won't give that person any credit for that.
If Jim Benning could sign a couple of players for free, and this all would work out. They would only be able to fit in the cap space.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that Benning can't trade Julevi for Crosby. Like, how can he not make that trade? you know.
Oh, Canucks Twitter.
There's still some good defensemen out there that I think can fill a role that they want. There's still Sami Vatanen.
I was going to ask about him.
I really like him as an ad. If they can figure out how to keep him healthy, that's a great ad. That's the only issue with him. There's Mark Pysyk, I think is someone that you could get for cheap and see if he can be a bit more than he was in Florida. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, underrated, solid right shot defenseman. He's not going to add much offense, but again, I like him as a potential ad. And then as well as you got Zach Bogosian and Jan Ruda, both played with Tampa this past year. Both big right shot defensemen. I think you could get for cheap. Again, they don't.
I wouldn't mind that.
They don't necessarily add much offense, but you're at slim pickings here at that point. So, and another one who's younger, and I think it has some upside that hasn't been tapped yet is Madison Bowie. He was playing for Washington and didn't get qualified. He's only 25 years old. Put up 17 points in 53 games, which is like, let's see here, the same amount of points as Stetcher did. So I think I think that would, if Benning's looking for someone who can potentially be, he's not going to be a game changer puck mover, but someone who can be underrated in that aspect. Madison Bowie would be a very good pickup for the Canucks if they can do that. Plus, there's a lot of players available on via trade at this point, and maybe you do have to move out. Say, even though Jake Virtanen's filed for arbitration, I still believe you can trade the player when they've done that. And you can use him as a trade chip to go after, say, Columbus is shopping David Savard, another big physical defenseman. They've got Mackenzie Weegar out of Florida is being shopped. Maybe look at picks and prospects for, say, a Vince Dunn out of St. Louis, who's St. Louis is out of cap space, and they need to, and he needs a new contract. So there's moves to be made. Like this isn't dire straits at this point for the Canucks and what the next year's roster is going to look like.
You have to think there's more up Jim Benning's sleeve here. I know people are probably feeling not very confident in the guy right now, but you'd have to think there's more in the works here. I mean, they can't have come into yesterday thinking that they were going to re-sign all these guys and not have another plan. There's got to be another plan.
Let's talk quickly about Pietrangelo. Then I want to get into something with the Tanev and the jersey thing that I know Heidi wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I'm not saying Pietrangelo is going to Vancouver, but let's throw a scenario that Pietrangelo needs to end up in Vegas. Is a Nate Schmidt or a Derek England or an Alec Martinez something that would interest you?
Not England, no.
Martinez, yeah.
Martinez and Schmidt, yes. But again, they're both.
They can play the right side.
Benning and Vegas is coming at me with that. I'm asking for the moon because they're the only reason they're looking to move those players is so they can add Pietrangelo. Like you're saying, like you want me to give you a get out of jail free card so you can go off and sign the premier defenseman on the free agent market. Give me everything. That's the only issue right there. It's also the divisional trade, right? So are you really willing to take on, say, a Alec Martinez or a Nate Schmidt for a marginal and not hold them over and
you gotta hold them over for sure. I'm not saying don't hold them over.
Do that, no, because they become a better team with Pietrangelo on that blue line.
No, so, I don't disagree that you're not holding them ransom, but I'm asking, like, is there an option there for you to look at these three guys? Now, is there? Throw another scenario. Devin's not going to like this. If the Leafs are interested in Pietrangelo, what about a Lindgren or a Rasmus Sandin possibility, or someone on the Leafs?
Well, if that's not the Leafs need to lose cap space to be able to afford Pietrangelo. And I think when they went after Barry, they showed their hand that they're no longer in those sweepstakes unless something major happens. Because if you look at that, the Leafs are over the cap right now. They're going to have to do some movement to get under it. They're about $1 million over right now, and Vegas has under $2 million. So it's funny how the top spots that Pietrangelo wants to go to literally have no room for him. So it's going to be interesting to see. There will be movement. That's the other thing. Again, there will be movement. St. Louis is over the cap, and they've got, like I said, they've got Vince Dunn that needs to be re-signed. He's a left shot, so it's not exactly the best, but again, I think there's movement available. This isn't dire straits for Canucks fans, and even if they think it is, there's movement, there's trades to be had here.
It's not dire straits. It just feels that way with the names that we're talking about that are gone. Yeah.
The other one I think is see if you can find a right shot defenseman on a shitty contract for the next 2 years, and swap Eriksson for him. See if that's something you can do. The name that comes up to me is Anton Strolman out of Florida. He's got a 5.5 cap hit for the next 2 years. Is not worth that under the current setup, and they're looking to move Mackenzie Weegar because they signed because they don't have enough room on the right side. So maybe you swing it that way. I looked at that, and I think that makes sense to make the Canucks a little more cap efficient, as well as even if he doesn't necessarily work out this year, his buyout's a lot more palatable than Eriksson's is for the one final year.
Chris, what are your
as far as like I admit that I was distracted with a doorbell ring. Who were we talking about specifically?
Options on defense for the Canucks.
Okay, as far as options, I honestly really like the idea that Drance actually threw out last week about potentially offer sheeting Cernak. I think that could be a potential option. As far as like guys like Sean was mentioning earlier, just going after those like bargain basement sort of contracts once you wait out this free agency for a little bit and just see who's still available and who's the best of the rest, if you will, especially with our limited cap space at the moment.
The thing about the offer sheet is that if you are successful in signing the player, you're having to send them draft picks too.
It's basically a trade.
It is a price you pay, but if you get a top-notch, or maybe not as good of a guy as Cernak is for a first or a second, like I potentially might take that gamble.
And Tampa's prime for it, right? Because they've got Cirelli that needs a new contract, Cernak that needs a new contract, Sergachev that needs a new contract. They've got just under $3 million in cap space, so not enough to sign all three of those. Not nearly enough.
Yeah.
And they even tried putting Tyler Johnson through waivers, and no one took him.
Yeah, that was fascinating to me.
No one wants that contract, though. God.
I feel like if you're patient with Tampa, you could get some gems out of them.
And I think you could legitimately offer Cernak a $4 million contract for 3-4 years, and Tampa would seriously have to look at not matching that, and that's only a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm. You could also do the same with Ryan Pulock out of New York Islanders there. He's a right-handed shot defenseman, 26. He's an RFA, so you could offer sheet him as well.
Let's just quickly switch here back to the Flames. Heidi, now that TJ Brody has gone to the Leafs, we'll get into that in a little bit. Just as a side note, it's fascinating. Brody did make more, got a bigger contract than Tanev. So that's fascinating to me. But jersey numbers, does Matthew do it? That's the question.
Yeah, that was just kind of a discussion that's kind of went on in the Flames community for a little while, that if Brody ever left, whether Matthew Tkachuk would want to wear 7. His brother wears 7. His dad wore 7. Matthew wore 7 growing up. Had 7 on the London Knights team. So whether he would take it, I'm curious to know just in general what you guys think about players changing jersey numbers in general. I would be a little upset myself. Obviously, I have that, and then so like my jersey would feel like it's outdated. But at the same time, if I would totally see why he would want to take it. But I'm unsure whether he will or not. He'll stick with that.
I won't be surprised if he does. William Nylander did it last year, changing from 29 to 88. I have a William Nylander jersey, and so I'd be in the same boat as you, Heidi. But at the same time, that makes him a bit more vintage and maybe a bit more bragging rights that he had it before he changed the number. But I think that Tkachuk will do that out of tribute to his dad. And it'll be super weird to see him in a number 7 because Brody's been 7 for years now. But it won't be that big of a difference.
My favorite number 7 in the Flames is Joey Mullen, and they never honored him as a Flame, and they should. That's a whole other subject. I know, Sean, he was not a dirty player. Just in case you were saying no, because we talked about that with Gary Suter, and you're like, he's dirty.
Gary Suter, it was a dirty player.
Okay, but Joey Mullen was not a dirty player.
I wasn't going to go there.
I'm just making sure.
But on jersey numbers too, the Canucks are going to have with Tanner Pearson and Holtby. Both have been number 70 for their whole careers in the NHL. So someone's going to have to Pearson may give it up, or Holtby may choose another number. So
I could see Matthew in 7 though, for sure.
I would have to guess that Holtby picks a different number, but
I do
You
too.
think so?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that's a Stanley Cup winner.
Well, they
that's
both
what I
are.
thought too.
Well,
But
Yeah, that's the thing, and Pearson was there before, so I think just out of respect, you just pick a different number.
It's either that or there's some you hear about the bribing and dinners or watches or whatever type of things that they like.
Yeah.
I can see Matthew wearing the 7. I can see Holtby, and probably Holtby. I could even see that just switching just for his own sake. Get that stupid number. Get that number off my back. I got a new get a new number.
So did Chris just unceremoniously leave, or?
Yeah, we have to say goodbye to Chris as he is off to celebrate Thanksgiving and his birthday. So thanks, Chris, for joining us. Shout out to Hannah and Bowie and all of those.
Of course, yes. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Yes. Deb, let's we haven't talked about the Leafs yet, and we have to talk about TJ Brody to the Leafs. I guess let's start here. Heidi, are you sad that TJ Brody's gone?
I'm sad to see TJ Brody gone. As a person, he has been with the team forever. Actually, somebody threw this stat into the Flames Discord this morning that there's only 2 players left now on the Flames that played with Jarome Iginla, and that is Gio and Backlund. Now that Brody's gone, so that's just a way of making people feel old as well. As I said, it's going to be sad to see him go. Like, he's been a staple on the team for a long time, definitely since as long as I've been a fan of the team. He does a ton of stuff in the community, the Skate and Strides program, which I hope will maybe the Flames Foundation will kind of keep going. But I think it was time for him to I think he needed the change of scenery. In my opinion, and he's going home. So the Leafs already put out a video yesterday where they found a video of him at some kind of kids Leaf skills competition. So I mean that in itself just means that deal was good. So I'll definitely miss him.
Yeah, I think Leafs got a decent deal out of him. Kevin, you said that you're surprised that Brody got more than Tanev. The reason why is because Brody, other than his random collapse this past year, has been fairly healthy, and he'll be definitely a good benefit on that Leafs blue line with either playing with Morgan Riley, or I could see more of a fit with Jake Muzzin because he does like to jump up in the rush, and Morgan Riley does as well. So having both of them on the same line, I feel like would not be the best. So I could see Morgan Riley with Justin Hall, and then TJ Brody with Jake Muzzin as a good top 4 defense right there.
Eric Francis tweeted this out. And I think that there was there's some validity to this. I think is how is TJ Brody going to deal with the criticism out there in Toronto?
That's such an Eric Francis thing to ask, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, geez, really?
Yeah, that was a stupid thing for him to.
Well, boy, Kevin.
It isn't though, but it's one of those things that the Leaf media will be tough on TJ Brody.
Yeah, but why is he making it about TJ Brody? It's just the same as why is he not asking that about any single player on the Toronto team ever? Like,
well, TJ, sorry, go for it, Cuddy.
No, go ahead, Devin.
He's a sensitive player. He has been known to not like criticism. So it's a fair but not fair comment because it won't be really that much different than here, especially in the past couple of years. We've been like the media and Flames fans have been kind of clamoring about how his game was back 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he wasn't playing that great. Like when he's playing well, you don't really see him that much. The biggest thing is that when he makes mistakes, they're big mistakes. So probably, yeah, that is very Eric Francis of him to say and ask, but I don't think he's gonna really skip a beat from the Calgary media to Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, the guy chose to go to Toronto. They're both Canadian markets. You're just reaching for material there, Eric. Which is what we'd expect, I guess.
The one thing for me is now what the Leafs. I said the Leafs are over the cap right now. They have Mikheyev and Dermott to sign still. They only have one right-handed defenseman in the NHL who can play at the NHL level right now. I see one or two moves coming from its trades or to bring in another right shot defenseman because I honestly think that you cannot be a truly successful and go far in the playoffs without having two right shot defensemen. Vegas did fantastic this year with it because they had Nate Schmidt who plays really well on his offside, but the Dallas was able to capitalize on the fact that the only right shot defenseman Vegas had was Zach Whitecloud. So I do wonder if we see the Leafs make a move for a right shot defenseman via trade. As well as to find a way to lose cap because they desperately need to.
Yeah, I could see the Mackenzie Weegar right now is kind of the whispers of the right shot defenseman out of Florida, like Sean mentioned before, and we mentioned that yesterday as well. It could definitely see an Alexander Kufford on the way out, which is 3.5, or Andreas Janssen. Probably more likely. He does have a bit more upside, or he does have more upside than Alexander Kerfoot, and probably would be more of a trading chip than Alexander Kerfoot could be. But if you trade your third line center, you still have Pierre Engvall, who I feel like is a very good young player, and he could move up into that third line role easily enough. And then you still have Jason Spezza, who was just recently signed at a league minimum deal of $700K on your fourth line. So there's still definitely going to be some moves. I I somewhat disagree with Sean. Surprise, surprise there. About ideally, you want to have 2 right-hand shots in your top 4 defensemen, but I still think that you'd be able to get by without it. Talented players will make things. They'll make plays happen, and they'll be able to actually do better than you would actually think to be on your offside. Yes, it is different, but I don't think it's drastically different when everything is even.
Because they've also got the Mikko Lehtinen, who they want to bring in, and they expect to be a top 6 defenseman for them. He's a left shot guy who plays the right as well. So they've got 3 of them that can do it. But I still do think that if they can find a trade to make to get a right shot defenseman, they would, because it makes a lot of sense. Like I think it to be successful long term. And I think that's the goal for the Leafs and Dubas. You need another right shot defenseman in the mix there. And Nate Schmidt is the reason it worked for Vegas this year is because Nate Schmidt's a really good top 4 defenseman, while the Leafs only right shot defenseman in the NHL right now is Justin Holl, who's not anywhere near the same level as a Nate Schmidt. So I do think that they would. I think it makes a lot of sense to me for them to do that and to balance out the pairings a little bit better. But I do like the top 4 that Devin mentioned. You said there's Muzzin and Brody, and then Riley and Hull right now. I think that's a decent top 4 to build around, and then you find a way to. They also need to find a way to make room for Rasmus Sandin. Right, I think that kid's ready. I think he is to be a full-time NHLer. So there's moves to be made all over the place. There's just because you've struck out at UFA doesn't mean you're not going to be able to find moves later on. So I do think that it's going to be very interesting because again, there's teams that need to lose cap for potential next moves or just to get under for the season.
The Dallas Stars had one of their top 4 as a right-hand shot, and that was Klingberg. Taylor Fedun was a 5-6. They had 2.
Yeah, but that's to say again, Klingberg, stud defenseman, right? Nothing against Justin Holl, but he's not anywhere near both those players.
What? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But Brody is definitely an upgrade
with the Canucks too. I have no issues with them going after a left shot defenseman to play on the right side if need be, but they will have to solidify that the other available right shot spot. If they decide to go with Chatfield, I think they need to make sure that other defenseman is a right shot defenseman, because I think right now we're looking at Hughes Myers up top, Edler with whoever. And then you're going to look at a combination there of Ben, Hugh Levy, and Chatfield right now. Ben's a guy who can play both sides. I actually think he's a better right side defenseman as a left shot than he is on the left side. But if he'll be the veteran. The veteran steadying force for whoever he plays with, whether it's Hugh Levy or Chatfield at this point, if that's the way they want to go. But if that's the way they want to go with their bottom pair, they desperately need to find a way to solidify that number 4 D spot and make it a significant person.
Yeah. Today seems to be the day, or the last 24 hours seem to be now the defensemen seem to be going, as yesterday was the goaltending carousel. Today seems to be a little bit of the defenseman carousel with Barry and Stetcher and Tanev. So this will be fascinating. It's interesting that there's no trades yet. Does that surprise anybody?
No, I think they're figuring out who they can get signed to the right deals, and then the teams that missed out on the top end players are going to start figuring it out.
Yep, Sean said it perfectly.
Devin just shared a tweet with us here from Greg Wyshynski, basically on the same points that Kevin made earlier about if Vegas were to sign Pietrangelo, then wonder if a trade with the Canucks is the next step involving maybe a Martinez or a Schmidt. So there you go.
Not just a face in the back end here that makes funny faces here. Sometimes there's a brain in this as well.
Maybe Greg's watching right now.
Hey, Greg.
He said, as he said, no bailouts for enemies. So the cost, if they decide to do that and go over the cap by what it'll probably be like $6 million, they're going to have to do something, and they're going to be held hostage by every team, because you can't especially like do you think these GMs who got absolutely shafted by Vegas in the expansion draft are going to take it easy on them for that? No.
Nope.
That's going all the way back to Markstrom and Holtby. That's another reason why I love them moving on from Markstrom and going with Holtby. Markstrom wanted the no movement clause. They couldn't do that with Demko, and now they've got one. They didn't have to give one with Holtby, and I think they're still going to have a very, very good goaltending tandem between Demko and Holtby, and they're going to be able to protect Demko going into the expansion draft.
Speaking on that, I want to speak on that for a second here. We had a couple of people in our class had this conversation. So let's say Holtby's not taken by the Seattle Kraken. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. He's still 4.3 for a solid 1A, 1B goaltender. And yes, he's had a couple bad seasons, but let's look at this. He started falling off a little bit, but that's just goaltending. You have waves with goaltenders. When they won the cup, he had to get the net back in the middle of the playoffs, but then stood on his head for the rest of the playoffs when the Capitals won. Then Trotz left, and more importantly, the goaltending coach Mitch Korn left. They both went to the Islanders. So the last 2 years, he's been dealing with a coach that he hasn't dealt with. Like, he has like Mitch Korn and Ian Clark. It's Mitch Korn, Ian Clark, and then Francois Allaire out of New York are the three most, as well as Rolly Melanson out of New Jersey, are the foremost well known and sought after goalie coaches in the NHL. They've done absolute really, 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 really good work with goaltenders from Bobrovsky, Varlamov, Luongo, Schneider, Holtby, Grubauer. Like they've made those goalies who they are and got them paid. But so now one of the major reasons he chose to come to Vancouver was Ian Clark. He really respects Ian Clark as a goaltending coach. I really expect Holtby to have a bounce back season under the tutelage of Ian Clark, and Demko's going to continue to develop. So if you have that tandem for the next 2 years, even if Holtby isn't taken by Seattle, I don't see why you'd be upset with that. DiPietro's on his way, but he's still at least a year away from even being like considered a NHL backup ready. And then it's prudent to over-ripen a lot of goaltenders. There's very rarely are you able to move a goaltender up without them playing at least 2-3 years in the AHL. I think there's only Carter Hart and Vasilevsky are the two that have really really fast tracked through the AHL, but the rest of them have all in the last little bit have all been spent a significant amount of time playing in the AHL. Markstrom included, Schneider included. So I think it's going to be, I honestly like it. 2 years with Demko and Holtby as the worst case scenario is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Before Heidi jumps out. The one other topic I wanted to ask about is Edmonton. They did not win any of the sweepstakes. They didn't win the Markstrom sweepstakes. I don't know. They sounded like they offered a significantly higher contract for Holtby than what the Canucks gave. And they have the new arena. They had Connor McDavid. Everything was supposed to line up that they were supposed to get all these free agents coming there. And they are still not winning. They got Ken Holland. They have made every significant change that you possibly could make to make a better organization. And they did get Kyle Turris. Tyler Ennis ended up re-signing. But in terms of the big fish, still don't seem to be an attractive place to go.
Well, it sounds like Tyson Barrie left money on the table to go to Edmonton, but he's there for show me. He's there to feed off of McDavid and Draisaitl and then cash in on a long-term contract next year. It's the biggest reasons why he went there. But I think the biggest thing is they haven't proven that they can do anything with all those players. They've gone on one playoff run. They couldn't get past Chicago in the play-in round this year. And they've been in the playoffs once in how many years? Like this, we can, in a way, I want to compare them to Toronto, but I can't even do that because Toronto actually makes the playoffs. Edmonton doesn't.
Yeah, my point would be the same as Sean's. Just because you have McDavid and Draisaitl doesn't mean your chances of winning are great. They haven't shown any indication of that other than a few years ago when they made it to the second round.
Yeah.
The only reason why, sorry, Heidi, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I was about to say what Sean said was that they, no matter, like they have these things. They have Connor McDavid. They have whatever, but it's just something else is not working out there, and it's not. And I hate to shit on the city of Edmonton, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's just not a place that people want to go. Like, it's not that nice in the wintertime. They'd probably rather go to Florida where it's warmer. Like, just even the kind of stuff kind of like that. But yeah, as I said, Sean kind of took all the things I was going to say out of my mouth about about just something still in the water and something's just not quite right there yet.
They're cold, dark winters. Like you can say that about Calgary too, but we get Chinooks, and I can the monotony up. You don't get those in Edmonton. And when you're not successful and you're not making playoffs, no matter who you have on the team here, it's going to be tough to attract the top end players.
And that's a tough market too, like with the media and the fans and everything as well. Like you got to look into all of that stuff as well.
The only reason why Tyson Barrie went up there is to be on the power play because Clefbaum is probably not going to be playing next year, and he could be on that number one unit, and that is where his bread and butter is quarterback in that power play. Like I said, that's the only reason why. If I was Connor McDavid, I'd be calling Peter Holland and asking him what the hell is going on. Why can't we land these guys? And it just makes me think that potentially McDavid could be out of Edmonton sooner than people think, or wanting out at least.
I think the answer to that is pretty simple. I mean, they don't have enough money to spend. There's too much money tied up in the two guys. There's even quite a lot tied up in goaltending. The attractiveness of the market is a factor for free agents, certainly. But at the end of the day, if the chance of winning, the fit, and most importantly, the contract if you're offered a big contract, people will go. People are not that averse to Edmonton, but they just can't throw the big money at the big name free agents right now, and so here we are.
But they're out. Holtby left money on the table. I think I have a funny feeling. I would not be surprised if we learned that they outbidded Calgary for Markstrom.
Mm-hmm.
That's
when you look at your situation, and they're not making the playoffs with the two of the top five players. You have to wonder what's going on up there, right?
Well, there's not really much commitment to defensive play over there. So if you're a goalie, why the hell would you want to go there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
And even if Holtby had a similar offer from Edmonton, like once again, it's lifestyle too. I would way rather be in Vancouver.
Fair. That there's no dispute about that. And then, I mean, even when you're promoting your NHL bubble playoffs and you're promoting Jasper as opposed to Edmonton, you're not giving this a good sign. God love you out there in Edmonton.
You know what's bad when even Chris Cuthbert's on podcasts making fun of that.
Yeah. That is funny. Well, let's leave it there. We have covered pretty much everything. If I would suspect that this is my bold prediction. And I'll just leave my last comment. I think Alex Pietrangelo is going to be out there for a long time. I don't think that that's one that's going to be signed this weekend. That's my sense. And Taylor Hall, I think that might be a while too, unless that might be quicker, but
Taylor Hall will be quicker because I think he's got. He's willing to go to more places. Pietrangelo seems to be dead set on less than a handful of places, and they all seem to have cap issues. He's visiting Vegas today, but as we said, Vegas has less than $3 million in cap, and he's not going to take less than 7 to sign. I wouldn't be surprised if he's up closer to 8, honestly. And so they're going to have like I said, they've got major moves to make to open up cap space for Pietrangelo, and then to be able to have cap flexibility throughout the year for injuries, because you can't put yourselves into a position where you can't dress a full roster, especially on even if it's not a full 82 game season, it's still going to be a tight compressed season.
Mm-hmm.
So
you can't sleep on Colorado either. Colorado could be in that mix as well.
Both of them, actually.
I've heard Colorado's not necessarily planning on being too aggressive, especially for long-term contracts. I think they want to keep as much flexibility as possible. But with Colorado, I do think that we see them make a move for a goalie.
Yeah, they are going to need one for sure. All right, how do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canuck 03 on Twitter.
I am at Hyde Baseballs everywhere on the internet.
I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter. I
am Kate Schneids, is SCHNEIDZ. Happy birthday to him. I am KEVOLE, podcast_hockey. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, and tell your friends about the most underrated podcasts in hockey. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.